This is the city of Sihanoukville. It has gone from a sleepy beach house to this. Home to Cambodia's only deep water port, Sihanoukville is the focal point for Chinese investment. It is incorporated into the maritime portion of China's Belt and Road Initiative and is envisioned as a hub for Chinese tourists. But why do China and Sihanoukville have such a close relationship in the first place? So Cambodia has all this land and they need to attract investments, and Cambodia is hoping to attract a mass inflow of Chinese capital and investments for rapid development, so they hand out land deeds to China. Like in 2018, where $1.1 billion was invested into Sihanoukville to create over 100 new casinos and other peripheral services. At first glance, it seems like Cambodia's development is benefiting from this interdependent relationship. Yet, despite all these advantages from the strategic partnership, rising concerns about labor abuses, livelihood disruptions, ecological perturbations, and economic dependence are already making headlines. Cambodia has neoliberal policies in place to incentivize the Chinese. Cheap labor, land, and lax regulations are offered as incentives for the Chinese. Money from the casinos also goes back to the Chinese, instead of being reinvested in Cambodia's development. So this creates Cambodia's dependency on China, where there is an unequal and exploitative relationship. Because Sihanoukville is this space of exception that the free market forces are allowed to reign free, Cambodia is even more reliant on China for income or investment. I guess the question now is, how is neoliberalism hurting Sihanoukville? Along the streets of Sihanoukville, the most evident change is the Chinification of the city. As Chinese investments develop casinos, there is an increase in the number of Chinese businesses to serve Chinese tourists. So local Khmer signboards are quickly replaced by red signboards written in Chinese. Although Chinese investments have contributed to Sihanoukville's economic growth, the influx of Chinese investments also act as a closed loop. This wealth accumulation is confined to local elites, such as those who own land or politicians who support Chinese investments. This leaves few economic opportunities for locals.
Why do you think that the Chinese expats don't come to eat at your restaurant?
Chinese, they always go to Chinese restaurant. Drink there, they eat there. So all income they want to give back to the Chinese people.
The circumstances created poverty among the locals. They are not only dispossessed from their lands, but are now excluded from the economy, wiping away traces of Sihanoukville's local practices and language. What about the environment? In this paper on sustainable coastal tourism in Sihanoukville, the authors note that land use change, loss of natural habitats, intensification of urbanization, and greater volumes of waste will place future sustainability at risk and needs vigilance. Neoliberalist policies by the government were not accompanied by regulatory policies to control and manage the pollution.
So to be clear, this casino was unauthorized,
Yeah,
its license had expired, and it was pumping raw sewage into these waters.
yeah. And they build it without authorization.
Because Sihanoukville now profits from its casinos and hotels, evidence suggests that the current influx of Chinese investments only prioritizes beaches that have value to the coastal hotels. Pristine coastlines like those of Serendipity Beach are now dirty construction and dump sites. Chinese resorts and casino complexes have been found to have released unfiltered sewage straight into the sea, damaging the local ecosystem. As a result of criticism from Cambodians and the international community, Cambodia has begun cutting back on its neoliberal policies through the banning of online gambling. However, this caused a great Chinese exodus. New casino constructions have been stopped and shut down. Chinese restaurants and businesses have collapsed overnight as more than 10,000 Chinese nationals departed Sihanoukville within days. These cutbacks on neoliberal policies revealed Cambodia's reliance on Chinese investments, while the precarious work caused locals a further loss of income. The future of the development and environment in Cambodia is difficult to imagine. As Sihanoukville continues to be developed into the Shenzhen of Cambodia, some key questions remain. Will the Cambodian government continue to use neoliberal policies to manage its development? Is this a precursor for greater Chinese dominance in other parts of Cambodia? How will Cambodian lives be affected?